For instance, you can look into a Core Dave, you can look into a DCS, you can look into Esoteric, right? I can see those being great matches, right? So it is important. This is when you begin to do the tuning. Some of you guys are going to be frowning upon what I'm saying of tuning. Why are you going to use a source to tune? Yes, guys, that's a thing. Okay, this is why I have 2 DACs. So if I have a Magical M6, I'm using my MSB. If I have a Wilson, I'm probably either doing the DCS, although the MSB sounds just as good. It is important that you look at the source that you're bringing on board, because if you buy a source that has too much, I wouldn't say information, but it's a cool sounding, meaning on the brighter side of things, it may not get along if the rest of your electronics are a little bit on the bright side, right? You need to be able to bring a source that's going to negate too much brightness or a warm presentation from your amplifier and preamplifier. Does that make sense? It is very important. Sources are also, in my opinion, those things that can make you go wow, or doesn't really engage you. It doesn't really do a thing for you. The source is so important, guys. I can't stress it enough. Everything really plays a part, but the source, to me, I see it as a good meal, right? It just makes you feel better when you eat clean. When you have a great meal, you feel good. Instead of eating junk food, you don't feel the same. I think of a source like that. I think of a source as the great nutrients, if you will, that the presentation, that the music that you're going to be playing needs. It's very important to have a great source. It's very important to know and listen to different sources, of course, because if not, if you choose the wrong source, not highly resolving, not enough bass, not a big sound stage, you're going to be scratching your head thinking, it doesn't really suck me in. It doesn't really get me going. It doesn't really make me tap my feet. The source is very important here. Remember. The next one, once you have your amplifier, preamplifier, and source, whatever that may be, I begin to tell you power conditioning. Shunyata Everest or the old Denali. You got AudioQuest Niagara 5000 or 7000. You got Furman pieces. You got Richard Gray, I think it is. You got so many options. You got the PS Audio P20, the P10. You got so many options at your disposal. This cannot be overlooked. I believe you need to have some sort of power conditioning. You have to have. First of all, because you'll need more outlets than the 2 to 3 outlets I recommended. I think you're going to need more than that. You're going to need more outlets to plug stuff into. It is very important that you buy a power conditioner. I believe a well-designed system always needs a power conditioner. Always, of some sort. I'm not going to go into details as to which one you should buy, because I think that's probably a topic for another video. But I can tell you that it cannot be overlooked. Back in the day, we used a power strip. What the hell? We called it a day, right? We just needed more outlets. I need a couple of more outlets. Plug a power strip, plug it in there, plug your TV there, your VCR there, and you're done. That can't be the case here. You need a power conditioner if you're going to be serious about building a reference audio system. The next item, cabling. Now that we got all the main components, the brain and the heart of the system, I believe now we got to start looking at cabling. Now, I know it's very frowned upon to say that you should never use cables to tune a system. That cables should be completely neutral. That cables should do nothing but pass the signal from point A to point B. I'm here to tell you guys, just about every cable I've heard has some sort of sound characteristics. There is some sort of tonality involved with cables, okay? Every cable will have some sort of desired effect on your system. To me, cables are, and I know some of you guys do not believe in them, but again, if you took the time to buy an amplifier, a preamplifier, and a source, you got to pay attention to cables. Believe me when I say this. If you do not have some respectable cables, what happens is everything else you just did, buying the amplifier, the preamplifier, and the source, you're negating the full performance of those components. Okay? So if that system on a scale from 1 to 10 was supposed to sound, let's just say an 8, right? Let's just say an 8 because a 10 would cost you, let's say, more money. You, by going the cheap route with cables, you went from an 8 to a 6. You are not maximizing the performance of your system. Cables matter. I'm telling you right now, they matter. It's not a myth. It's not voodoo. It's not a lie. It's not a conspiracy. It's not some sort of a trick that dealers are trying to put on you or friends. Cables matter, guys. You gotta spend the money on cables. So, speaking of cables, where do we start? The most important cable for me, and I had a hard time thinking about this one, guys. It was between two. It was between the power cords or the speaker cables. Guys, I had the most difficult time deciding on this one. Some days I want to say it's a power cord. The power cord is the most important cable in the entire system. But then, you know what? I thought about it long and hard, and I believe speaker cables are the most important cable in your system. Everything travels through the system, beginning from the outlet, through your sources, through your preamplifier, through your amplifier, and then finally to your speakers, right? So the last cable to gather information is the speaker cable. If you have put the best cables behind, but your final cable being the speaker cable, right, is the worst cable you've got, you again undid everything you just did behind. Does that make sense? This is why I believe speaker cables, in my opinion, should be, I don't want to say the most expensive cable, but in reality, it tends to be oftentimes it is the most expensive cable. It really is. So speaker cables to me is the first cable you should get out there and buy. Once you do that, I believe it is important that you get out there and try to match the same family of cables. Just like you did with the amplifier and preamplifier. Try to get out and see if they make the matching XLRs and power cords. But the next cable after the speaker cable, in my opinion, should be the power cord. Power cord is the next cable that you should be looking into. Where does that power cord go? I think the first power cords, and you're going to need roughly at least one for the DAC or the source, one for the preamp, one for the amp if you have just the stereo amplifier, but if you bought monos, you need two. So you're going to need at least 3 power cords. The very first power cord, and if you don't have the money to buy all 3 at once, yes, this is system dependent, what I'm about to say. But for the most part, rule of thumb, first power cord should be going straight into your amplifier. First. Sometimes I've seen it where the DAC actually benefits the most out of the presentation than the amplifier. Again, you're going to have to try, but I would say for the most part, the amplifier. You have nothing to lose, right? You got the power cord. Try it on your amp, listen, and then try it on the source and listen. Did you get a better return on the investment by using it on the source? Keep it there. Okay, so amplifier, source, then you go to your preamplifier last, okay? And then finally, it should be your XLRs, your interconnects, your RCAs, whatever you're using. That should be your final cable to round out your system. The next one is something that I recently started to get more serious about, and that is room treatment. I know in the home theater world, we use surround sound processors with room correction that work extremely well, right? But that's not something we do in the 2-channel world. Now, of course, yes, there are some preamplifiers that people can use, 2-channel preamplifiers like Trinov and other brands that you can use to do room correction if you want to. And that's fine. But I'm not going to get into that type of setup. I am getting into the basics, and I'm not trying to get into bringing something with room correction for this particular video. I am going to talk to you about how to do it without getting any sort of technology in the middle. Acoustic treatments. Acoustic treatments are huge in any room. Huge. First thing should be, in my opinion, the bass traps in the corners behind the speakers. Important. Bass traps. That's going to give you it's going to help you reinforce and get the bass to be more accurate. Okay, so then you got the ceiling and then you got the wall behind, like I do right now. Okay, that's a basic setup. Now, of course, there are more things. The corners next to you or behind you, yes. The side walls, you can try diffusers or you can try absorptions. Usually people use diffusers on the wall behind and on the side walls, depending on what you're trying to accomplish. I am not a specialist with this particular topic. I'm giving you high level data for you guys to begin to do your homework and understand what needs to be done in your particular room. Then the final step, guys, when building a system, in my opinion, the final one should be tweaks. Tweaks tend to be a hit or miss, in my opinion. Okay? I have been using here lately the Still Point Ultra 5s under my Wilson Audio Alexandria XLF. And guys, right now I'm not quite sure I'm convinced with what I heard. But I'm not going to get into that topic or that conversation right now. What you need to know is tweaks help. But I have seen it where they actually take away from the presentation or add extra artificial information or an artificial feeling to the presentation that doesn't seem natural to me. I have seen that. Now, I'm not going to say every tweak is that way. That's not the case. But tweaks tend to be a little more of a hit or miss, okay, in my opinion. Yes, here are some tweaks that you can be thinking about. Aftermarket fuses. I have seen it. They work. They definitely help. Stands and isolation devices like what I have here. The Artisania stands, and you got the critical mass stands. Yes, you got, of course, the critical mass footers. You got all kinds of other things, cable lifters, all kinds of things that you can do to improve and dial in your presentation even further. But let me tell you something. Just because it is a tweak, it doesn't mean that it's 100% always going to help you make things better. Sometimes that's not the case. Sometimes a tweak can actually make your presentation go the opposite route. Make it leaner sounding. You lose bass. You get an added feeling to the presentation that doesn't seem right to you. So yes, tweaks can be very tricky, guys. Tweaks are going to be more for you to play with and then figure out if you can get things to sound even better. But remember that this is going to be a very much trial and error situation. Tweaks are very much trial and error. I don't believe a tweak works for every single component. I just do not believe that. A perfect example of that, if you watch my previous videos, was Boulder. I don't believe the big Boulder monos responded positively to adding critical mass footers under them. That was my experience. If you guys had a different outcome, good for you. In my room, they didn't do anything positive with Boulder. That's my opinion. And to not let this be forgotten, this final one is an honorable mention, guys. It is very important that you all get out there and listen to different systems, different components. It is huge, guys. You guys should get out there. And after we get out of this pandemic, go hear different things. Go hear different speakers, different sources, because that's really the only way you will know what really checks all your boxes or what doesn't. Don't do what Jay does. Do not do what I do. I buy blindfolded. I've been saying it many times. Everything you've seen here, I never knew what the Magical M6 sounded like. I never heard him. I heard him at a show, but really it was far away, so it doesn't matter. I never heard him. I never heard the XLFs. I never even seen an XLF in person. I bought him blindfolded. So there have been many components that I have bought that I never heard, but that's me. I do not recommend that you guys do that. I recommend that if you can do it, and if you have a store or a dealer near you, get out and listen. Nothing replaces seat time. Nothing replaces, okay? You can do all the reading you want to do. You can read all the magazine articles you want to read. It's just a man's opinion about a product. And ultimately speaking, what matters is your own opinion, your own assessment of the product. Remember, reviewers are just reviewers, are people who give you an opinion, but it's their personal opinion. So this is very subjective, okay? You may not necessarily agree with what a certain reviewer says, and that's fine. I don't agree with everything that's written on magazines. after my own trials, right? So the best way to really negate this added information or context from confusing you as to whether you should buy or not buy is to get out and listen, because by listening you get more of a feeling as to whether you should be buying that product or you should look elsewhere. That's all I got, guys. Thank you for your time. I hope you guys have found this video super informational. Thank you for following me. Thank you for giving me the support and the love. More videos coming your way. Have a great week.